She was my closest neighbor, my trusted friend. But every missing item, every rumor, every fight in my family led back to her. And the day I exposed her secret, everything changed. When I first moved into Willow Creek, everything felt like a dream. The streets were lined with tall oak trees, kids rode their bikes down the cul-de-sac, and neighbors waved as if they had known me forever. After years of struggling in the city, this quiet suburb finally felt like peace. And then there was Clara Hastings, my next-door neighbor. She was the first to welcome me with a warm smile and a basket of homemade muffins. Her laughter was soft, her voice soothing, and she always seemed to know exactly what to say to make me feel at home. Clara wasn't just a neighbor, she became like a sister. We exchanged recipes, had coffee dates, and shared secrets under the stars in our backyards. She was the kind of friend you never expect to find as an adult. Selfless, caring, trustworthy. At least that's what I thought. Because beneath Clara's perfect smile hid secrets that would unravel not just my life, but the peace of our entire community. At first, it was nothing. A misplaced hair clip, a single earring missing from the dish by my sink, my spare car key gone, then found 2 days later on the porch table, as if I'd put it there and forgotten. I blamed myself. New house, new routine, brain still in unpacking mode. Clara tutted sympathetically over her coffee. "It's the move," she said, reaching across my kitchen island to squeeze my hand. "When I first got here, I lost my sanity for 3 straight weeks." She laughed lightly. "Also my passport." I laughed too, grateful for how easily she made worry feel silly. Then the little things began to add up. I kept a weekly shopping list tucked to the side of the fridge. I'm not precious about food, but I am precise. If I write 2 eggs, it means I've got exactly 2 left. One Saturday morning, I opened the carton and found one. Not cracked, not used. Gone. I frowned at the empty groove where it should have been, then shrugged it off. Maybe I miscounted. On Tuesday, I couldn't find my favorite red scarf, the one my mother knitted before she died. I turned the bedroom inside out. Nothing. I tried not to panic, telling myself it would turn up. When I mentioned it to Clara as we weeded our flower beds along the shared fence, she looked genuinely concerned. "That's awful," she murmured. "You've been so stressed. Are you sleeping okay?" "Mostly," and I said, "Why?" She pinched a weed and dropped it into a bucket. "Sleep deprivation makes us forgetful. Just promise me you're taking care of yourself, okay?" I promised, even as something uneasy pressed at the back of my mind. The next missing thing wasn't small. A thin, leather-bound notebook where I kept personal notes, to-dos, and the kind of thoughts you don't say out loud. It lived in the top drawer of my nightstand. When I reached for it one evening, my hand met an empty space. A cold feeling slid down my spine. I tore apart the bedroom, dresser drawers, closet shelves, under the bed. Nothing. Noah came over that night with takeout and a puzzle-piece smile that usually fixed everything. He's steady like that. Broad shoulders, kind eyes, paramedics' hands that know how to help and when to simply hold. I tried to act normal, but it leaked out anyway. "What's wrong?" he asked. I told him. About the key, the scarf, the notebook, about the 1 egg missing, which sounded ridiculous out loud. He didn't laugh. "Do you lock your doors during the day?" "Of course." "Mostly, yes," I winced. "I might have left the backslider open the other afternoon while I was gardening." "Install a camera," he said gently. "Even if it's just for peace of mind." I nodded. Peace of mind felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. The following morning, I ordered a pair of small, discreet cameras. One for the porch, one for the living room pointing toward the hallway. While I waited for them to arrive, I made a game of noticing tiny details, footprints in the mulch. A smudge on the back doorknob I was sure I'd polished clean. The faintest scent of my perfume lingering in the hallway when I swore I hadn't sprayed it. "Overthinking," I whispered to myself. "You're overthinking." Willow Creek tried to smother the unease with its ordinary charm. Kids chalked galaxies on the sidewalks. Mrs. Patel waved from her porch swing. Her little terrier, Rusty, curled in her lap. Mr. Whitaker, the HOA president, did his slow stroll, hands clasped behind his back like a park inspector. Neighbors swapped zucchini over fences and local gossip at the mailbox clusters. The gossip, though, got strange. At the Saturday farmer's market, Mrs. Ellis from 3 doors down greeted me coolly. No warm smile, no small talk about tomatoes. She shifted her canvas bag from one shoulder to the other and said, "I heard about your situation." Her eyes flitted away, almost pleased and pitying at once. "What situation?" I asked, blinking. "Oh, well, if you need anything, I'm sure the neighborhood will rally." She nodded at nothing and moved on. Rally around what? Later that afternoon, I found a note on my doorstep, folded twice, tucked under a smooth river stone. "Some people bring their city habits with them. We mind our own business here." A neighbor. I stared at the paper until my skin prickled. City habits? I'd lived here barely a month. My cheeks burned with a shame I didn't recognize, like I'd been accused of a crime I hadn't committed. Clara breezed through my front door a few minutes later. She often did that, somehow always arriving right when I needed a friend. "I brought lemon bars," she sang, holding up a plate under plastic wrap. Her smile faded when she saw my face. "What's wrong?" I handed her the note. She read it, lips tightening. "That's disgusting," she said, cowardly. "Probably Whitaker thinking he's sheriff. Do you think people dislike me?" I hated how small my voice sounded. "Absolutely not." She put the plate down with a little thud. "Don't let anyone make you feel like an outsider. I'll ask around, quietly. You don't have to." "I want to." She squeezed my shoulder. "You belong here." That night, the cameras arrived. I set them up, one watching the front steps, the other tucked into a bookshelf with a clear view of the living room and hallway. I felt foolish, paranoid, but I also felt safer. For 1 full day, nothing went missing. On the second, I opened my pantry and found the spice rack rearranged. Not a lot, just enough. Cinnamon moved in front of cumin, paprika shoved to the far end. I hadn't touched it. My phone chimed. Motion detected. Living room, 12:42 p.m. I swiped, pulse quickening, and and watched a grainy clip of my empty hallway. A shadow slid across the floor. Then, a figure moved just at the edge of the frame and paused. Someone standing in my kitchen. Still enough that the camera's auto exposure struggled to catch their face. A familiar shape, familiar height, a braid hanging over one shoulder. Clara. The clip ended. My breath hitched. I replayed it 3 times. On the 4th, I noticed the smallest detail. Her hand reaching for something off screen. The pantry door. I sank into a chair, the room tilting. I wanted there to be some simple explanation. She was dropping off flowers, borrowing sugar, doing one of those neighborly things she was famous for, except I hadn't given her a key. And I always lock my doors. My spare key, the one that went missing, the porch table. It all clicked with an awful quiet certainty. I stood and walked to the front door, checking the deadbolt I had just locked a half hour earlier. My hand trembled, and not from the cold. In Willow Creek, people mind their own business, the note had said. Maybe someone wasn't minding theirs. Maybe someone was minding mine. If a close neighbor started appearing in your space when you weren't home, would you confront them immediately or gather more proof first? The next morning, I carried the secret inside me like a shard of glass. Every time I thought about the video, it cut deeper. Clara, with her easy smile and lemon bars, stepping into my home when I wasn't there, it didn't make sense. Unless it did. I told myself I needed context. Maybe she'd knocked and I hadn't heard. Maybe she found the key and was safekeeping it. Maybe I wanted to believe she wasn't what the camera suggested. But the gossip didn't let me rest. At the mailbox cluster, Mr. Whitaker gave me a long, assessing look, then said, "We take privacy seriously in Willow Creek." He wasn't talking about mail. His tone made it clear. 2 doors down, I waved at Mrs. Ellis. She turned her back. And when I went to buy bread from the local bakery, the cashier, who had always been chatty, offered me clipped politeness. Just a receipt. No smile. It was like smoke seeping through the walls. Rumors spreading faster than fire, though I didn't know their source. That night, I told Noah. I pulled up the clip, my hands shaking as I pressed play. He leaned in close, squinting at the footage. The shadow, the braid, the pantry door. His lips pressed into a thin line. "That's her," he said softly. "I want to believe it's a mistake." His hand covered mine. Sometimes the people we let closest are the ones who test us hardest. I looked at him, startled by the weight in his voice. "Has this happened to you?" He hesitated. "Once, a colleague, someone I trusted." His eyes darkened. The betrayal cut deep. That word again, betrayal. It sat heavy in my chest. The next day I decided to play detective. Not the bold, confrontational kind. Quiet, listening, observing. I lingered near the community bulletin board by the park, where neighbors always pinned notices about yard sales and babysitters. Instead of the flyers, I tuned my ears to the cluster of women chatting by the swings. You didn't hear it from me, but apparently she leaves her doors unlocked. Careless, honestly. Can't expect safety if you don't respect the neighborhood. And the drinking. Always wine bottles in her recycling. I froze. Drinking? I had exactly 1 glass of wine last week, alone after a long day. Recycling day had come and gone. Clara had helped me drag the bins out. The Whisper Network had teeth, and someone was feeding it. When I got home, I found another note. This one slid neatly under my doormat. Neighbors talk. Some of us don't feel safe. Maybe this isn't the right place for you. My stomach churned. Unsafe? I wasn't the one breaking into houses. That night, I walked the length of my house twice, checking every lock, every window latch. I even pulled the curtains shut tight. The camera blinked its tiny red light in the corner, watching. I didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I heard it. A faint creak of the back porch. My chest tightened. Slowly, I pulled my phone from the nightstand and opened the camera app. The live feed showed nothing at first, just stillness, the patio chairs, the faint ripple of leaves in the wind. Then, movement. A figure stepped into view, crouched low. Clara. Her braid swung as she leaned close to the sliding door, testing the handle. Finding it locked, she straightened and stood there for a long moment, staring into the darkness beyond the glass, staring into my house. Her face was calm, patient, and then she turned and walked away. I lowered the phone, pulse hammering, whispering the truth I no longer wanted to believe. The friendliest face on the street was the one trying hardest to erase me. What would you do if you caught your best friend trying to break into your house at night? Call them out directly or go to the police? The morning after seeing Clara on the porch, I couldn't shake the image. Her calm face, the deliberate tug on the sliding door, it replayed in my mind like a haunting reel. I brewed coffee I didn't drink. My hands trembled as I held the mug. When I finally stepped outside, there she was. Clara, as if nothing had happened. She waved cheerfully across the hedge wearing a pastel cardigan, holding a basket of muffins. "Morning, I baked extra, thought you might like some." Her tone was honey, sweet, and innocent, but I saw the wolf beneath. I forced a smile. "That's kind of you." She leaned closer over the hedge, lowering her voice. "You know, some people here, they don't understand outsiders, but I always tell them you're trying your best." A chill rippled down my spine. Outsider, trying your best. Words carefully chosen, as if she knew exactly what poison had been spilled in my absence. That night, I replayed both clips on my phone, the one in the pantry and the one at the sliding door. I wanted to confront her, shove the evidence in her face, but something stopped me. If Clara was bold enough to spread rumors, bold enough to sneak around my home at night, then confronting her too soon might only make things worse. Instead, I tried to gather proof. I checked with Mrs. Ellis, timidly asking if she'd heard anything unusual. She gave me a frosty smile. "Clara's just concerned." She said, "You've been struggling. Another word. It dripped like venom. At the grocery store, the clerk offered me a sympathetic smile this time. "I heard about your difficulties." My jaw clenched. Difficulties. The story was mutating, and Clara was at the center of it. One evening, while watering my garden, I overheard her on the phone. She stood on her porch, her voice drifting over the shrubs. "Yes, I'm just worried about her. She's not stable. It's sad, really, but the neighborhood deserves peace. The neighborhood deserves peace." I gripped the watering can so hard my knuckles turned white. She wasn't just tarnishing my reputation. She was laying the groundwork to push me out completely. That weekend, Noah came over. I showed him the second clip. He didn't say anything at first, just watched, his jaw tightening. Finally, he said, "You need to decide. Are you going to let her keep painting the picture, or are you going to show them the truth?" "But what if no one believes me?" I whispered. "Then you make them believe." His gaze was steady, grounding me. I nodded, though fear gnawed at me. The breaking point came during the community barbecue. Everyone was gathered on the green, folding tables lined with potluck dishes. Clara floated from group to group, laughing, touching arms, leaning in close like she was everyone's confidant. When she spotted me, her smile flickered for half a second, just enough to show the crack in her mask. Then she was beaming again. "There she is. We were just talking about you." My chest tightened. "What were you saying?" I asked, forcing calm. "Oh, just that you've had such a hard time settling in. But you're resilient." Her eyes gleamed. "A fighter." A few people chuckled nervously, glancing at me like I was a curiosity, not a neighbor. I wanted to scream, to tell them everything, to show the proof, but not yet. Not in her arena, not on her terms. Instead, I smiled tightly. "Thank you for your concern, Clara. I'm sure the truth will come out soon enough." Her smile faltered for just a breath, a tiny slip, and I saw it then. The mask she wore so perfectly wasn't invincible. It had cracks, and I was going to tear it apart. If you had proof your neighbor was secretly destroying your reputation, would you confront them publicly or wait and expose them at the perfect moment? By the time autumn rolled in, Clara's web was tightly spun. I could feel it every time I walked down the street. Neighbors smiled, but their eyes flickered with doubt. Conversations fell silent when I passed. Invitations stopped arriving in my mailbox. She'd turned me into the ghost of my own neighborhood. The cruel genius of it was subtlety. Clara never accused me directly, never said anything outright. Instead, she planted seeds, little whispers, twisted phrases. "She's under so much stress. I'm not sure she's coping well. Poor thing, she's trying." And those seeds grew into weeds, choking out trust. One evening, I went over to drop off a borrowed book at Mrs. Ellis's. As soon as I stepped onto the porch, I heard voices inside. "I just don't feel safe," Mrs. Ellis whispered. Then Clara's voice, low and silky. "It's not your fault. We all see it. But don't worry, I'll keep an eye on her. She listens to me." My hand froze on the doorknob. Safe? Keep an eye on me? She was turning the entire neighborhood into her surveillance team. I slipped away before they saw me, my heart pounding. At home, I pulled out a notebook and started documenting everything: dates, words, times, small shifts in behavior. Noah called it my war journal. "You're not crazy," he told me firmly when I hesitated. "She's running a campaign against you. Write it all down. Patterns tell the story," and he was right. A picture started to emerge. Clara always struck just before gatherings, steering conversations. She was strategic, calculating. She wanted me isolated, so when the final blow came, no one would defend me. The scariest part? It was working. One Saturday, I found an anonymous note slipped under my door. "Maybe this neighborhood isn't the right fit for you." The handwriting was careful, almost elegant. I didn't need to guess who it came from. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Everyone would be happier if you just left." My stomach dropped. I showed Noah. His jaw tightened. "This is harassment now. You could take this to the HOA, or even the police." But I shook my head. "Not yet. She's too careful. She'll twist it, make it look like I'm paranoid. I need undeniable proof." So I started digging. Late at night, when the neighborhood was asleep, I scrolled through community forums, old HOA records, even property reports. Clara's name popped up in unexpected places. Disputes with former neighbors, complaints smoothed over, transfers of property. She had a pattern of concern wherever she lived. It hit me like a thunderbolt. I wasn't her first victim. The realization fueled me. I wasn't going to let her ruin me like she had ruined others. The next community meeting was when everything crystallized. I sat in the back, quiet, while Clara stood to speak about keeping the neighborhood safe. Her tone was sweet, her smile perfect, but her words were daggers cloaked in velvet. "We've had unsettling behavior," she said, glancing my way just long enough for everyone to catch it. "I don't want to name names, but we all know peace is fragile. We must be careful who we trust." A few heads turned toward me. My throat tightened. I wanted to stand and scream, "It's her! She's the liar!" But I clenched my fists and stayed still. Not yet. The web was tightening, yes, but she didn't realize I was quietly gathering scissors. If someone spread lies about you but hid them behind concern, how would you fight back? Silence, proof, or confrontation? I thought I was alone in this war. That's what Clara wanted, to make me believe no one saw her games but me. But fate has a funny way of shifting just when you're about to break. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I was bringing in groceries when a soft knock came at the door. When I opened it, Mrs. Ellis stood there. She looked uneasy, her hands fidgeting with her sweater. "Can we talk?" she asked. I hesitated. She was Clara's closest listener, the one I'd overheard whispering fears. But something in her eyes, nervous, almost guilty, made me nod. We sat at my kitchen table, the groceries still scattered on the counter. She spoke in a rush, as if afraid someone might hear. "I don't know if you realize what Clara's been doing," she said, her voice trembling. "She comes to my house, tells me you're unstable, that you're dangerous even." At first I believed her, but then I started noticing the way she twists things. And now, I'm not sure what's true anymore. My breath caught. Finally, a crack in Clara's armor. "She's lying," I said firmly but without anger. "She wants me gone. I don't know why, but she's been building this story about me. You've seen it, haven't you?" Mrs. Ellis nodded, shame flickering across her face. "Yes, and I think she's done this before. I've heard whispers from her last neighborhood. Something about a couple who had to move. I didn't want to believe it, but..." She looked down. "I think you're right." Relief washed over me like cool water. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. I need proof, I said, leaning closer. If I confront her without it, she'll twist the truth. But if I can show everyone what she's been doing, undeniable evidence, she'll have no place to hide. Mrs. Ellis hesitated, then lowered her voice even more. You didn't hear this from me, but Clara records conversations. I've seen her little voice recorder hidden in her purse. She brags about having insurance in case anyone turns against her. My pulse quickened. A recorder? That could mean everything. That night, I told Noah. His eyes lit up with determination. If she's recording others, maybe she's recording herself too. People like Clara always think they're the smartest in the room. That arrogance might be her downfall. We devised a plan. Watch her closely, track her movements, see when she slipped up. If we could catch even one slip, one recorded conversation, one manipulated message, it could unravel the entire web. Days passed, and my paranoia sharpened into purpose. I noticed Clara's habits. Her afternoon walks with her phone glued to her ear, her frequent visits to neighbors right after disputes broke out, the way she lingered in the HOA office after meetings. Then one evening, Mrs. Ellis called me in a hushed panic. You should come over. Now, she left her bag here by mistake. My heart leapt. Could it be? I rushed to Mrs. Ellis's house. There, on the coffee table, sat Clara's designer handbag, elegant and pristine. Inside, half hidden beneath a silk scarf, was a small black voice recorder. I held it in my hands, my palms sweating. This was it, the key to her lies. But fear tugged at me. If I listened, I'd be crossing a line. Yet hadn't she crossed every line first? Noah's words echoed in my head. People like Clara always overplay their hand. I pressed play. Static crackled, then Clara's voice filled the room. Smooth, calm, venomous. She'll crack soon, she said in a recording. I've planted enough seeds. By the time anyone realizes, she'll be the outsider, not me. I closed my eyes, relief and rage crashing over me in equal measure. We finally had proof. If you discovered undeniable proof of someone plotting against you, would you confront them directly? Or wait to reveal it at the perfect moment? I didn't sleep that night. The recording played in my mind over and over. Clara's voice, so confident in her deceit, so certain that she could destroy me. But now, I had her words. Her own voice was the weapon that would undo her. The next morning, Noah and I sat at the kitchen table, the recorder between us like a ticking bomb. He looked at me seriously. This is enough to take her down, he said. But you have to be smart about how you use it. If you confront her one-on-one, she'll deny everything and spin it back at you. We need an audience. He was right. Clara thrived in shadows, in whispers behind closed doors. To defeat her, I had to pull her into the light. But how? That's when the idea struck. The upcoming neighborhood association meeting. Everyone would be there. The families she'd been poisoning with lies, the people she'd manipulated, the ones she pretended to protect. It was the perfect stage. Still, fear gnawed at me. What if it backfired? What if people still believed her? Later that afternoon, Mrs. Ellis dropped by. She looked more determined than I'd ever seen her. If you want backup, she said softly, I'll stand with you. I've stayed quiet too long. Her words gave me courage. The days leading up to the meeting were some of the longest of my life. Clara carried on as usual, smiling at everyone, dropping little hints of gossip, leaning over fences to whisper. But I watched her differently now. Every laugh, every gesture, every carefully chosen word looked like what it truly was, a mask. And sometimes I caught her looking at me with sharp, calculating eyes as if she sensed something had shifted. The night of the meeting arrived. The community center was buzzing with voices, the folding chairs filled with neighbors. Clara was already there, sitting in the front row, greeting everyone with her dazzling smile. She looked untouchable, her confidence radiating. I felt my stomach twist, but Noah squeezed my hand under the table. The meeting started with small issues: landscaping, neighborhood security, dues. Clara chimed in often, her voice steady, her words polished. And then, almost as if rehearsed, she turned the topic toward me. I've been concerned, she said, her voice carrying across the room. I don't want to alarm anyone, but I think it's important we look out for each other. Sometimes people struggle, and it can affect the community. Her eyes flicked toward me with faux sympathy. I've noticed some troubling behavior. For everyone's safety, maybe we should discuss it. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. The trap was closing. I stood up slowly. My hands shook, but my voice when I spoke was stronger than I expected. Actually, Clara, I think it's time everyone heard something important. The room fell silent. I held up the recorder. Clara has been spreading lies about me. She's been manipulating people, turning neighbors against each other. But she made one mistake. She recorded herself bragging about it. Clara's smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough. I pressed play. Her voice filled the room. She'll crack soon. I've planted enough seeds. By the time anyone realizes, she'll be the outsider, not me. The reaction was instant. Gasps, shocked whispers, people turning to look at Clara with wide eyes. Her face went pale, but she quickly stood, trying to recover. That's not me. That's been doctored. But the damage was already done. The storm had begun. If you were in my shoes, would you expose Clara in front of everyone or deal with her privately to avoid conflict? The room erupted. Some neighbors turned to each other in disbelief, while others glared at Clara as if they were seeing her for the first time. Mrs. Ellis was the first to speak. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned with long-suppressed anger. I knew it, she said. For months, Clara's been whispering things about me, about everyone. I didn't want to believe it, but hearing this, a ripple of agreement moved through the crowd. Heads nodded, whispers grew louder. Clara's mask was slipping. She raised her chin defiantly. This is ridiculous. You're all being manipulated by her, she said, pointing a sharp finger at me. Do you really think I would say something like that? Anyone could fake a recording these days, but Noah stepped forward, calm and steady. Funny thing, Clara, we were there when you said it. This wasn't doctored. This was you. And you didn't just say it once. The color drained from her face. She knew she was trapped, but her instinct to fight back was strong. "You're all ungrateful," she shouted, her voice rising. "Everything I've done for this neighborhood, the parties, the fundraisers, the security patrols. I've given my time, my energy, my heart, and this is how you repay me?" But the more she spoke, the more the room turned against her. "I thought you cared about us," Mrs. Patel said, shaking her head, "but you only cared about control." "You told me Sarah was spreading rumors about me," another neighbor said, glaring. "Was that a lie too?" Accusations flew from every corner. It was as if years of quiet doubts and uneasy feelings finally found their voice. Clara tried to maintain her composure, but cracks showed in every word, every frantic gesture. She paced the front of the room like a cornered animal. "You don't understand," she pleaded. "I was only trying to protect you all. People don't always show who they really are. Sometimes you need someone willing to see the truth." Her words rang hollow now. Nobody believed her. For once, I didn't feel small under her shadow. I stood taller, my voice steady. "You didn't protect us, Clara. You used us. You thrived on division, on making people doubt themselves and each other. But you underestimated one thing. Truth has a way of coming out." Silence followed, heavy and final. Then Mrs. Ellis stood and placed her hand gently on my shoulder. "We see the truth now," she said firmly. "And we're done letting Clara run this community." The group murmured in agreement. The decision was unspoken, but clear. Clara was no longer welcome. Her face hardened. Her eyes, once so full of charm, now burned with pure hatred. "You think you've won," she hissed. "But people always forget. And when they do, they'll come crawling back to me." She grabbed her purse, shoved her chair aside, and stormed out of the room. The door slammed behind her with a final echoing crack. For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension hung in the air like smoke. Then slowly, people began to turn toward me. Not with suspicion, not with doubt, but with something I hadn't felt in months. Trust. "You were brave," Mrs. Patel said softly. "You saved us from her," another neighbor added. The relief was overwhelming. My knees almost gave way, but Noah caught me before I could fall. For the first time in a long while, I felt safe. Clara was unmasked, but deep down, I knew the battle wasn't over. People like her didn't fade quietly. This was just the beginning of the aftermath. Do you think people like Clara ever truly change, or do they just find new ways to manipulate others? The days following Clara's dramatic exit were strangely quiet. For so long, her presence had been woven into every corner of our neighborhood, her voice at every meeting, her laughter at every gathering, her opinions dropped like seeds into every conversation. Without her, the silence felt almost unnatural, but slowly the quiet turned into something else. Peace. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in months began waving again, stopping for small chats. Children who had been discouraged from playing together were suddenly sharing bikes and chalk on the sidewalks. It was as if Clara's shadow had been lifted, and sunlight finally reached places we didn't realize had been darkened. Still, there was a lingering unease. Her final words echoed in my mind. "People always forget, and when they do, they'll come crawling back to me." Had we truly seen the last of Clara? One evening, a few days after the meeting, I received a knock at my door. It was Mrs. Ellis holding a plate of cookies like she used to before all the division began. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said warmly, "for standing up to her. We should have done it sooner, but we were too afraid." I shook my head. I was afraid too. But Noah reminded me that fear only grows when you let it, and Clara thrived on our silence. Mrs. Ellis sighed, her eyes sad. "People like her. They don't stop easily." "You should be careful," her words settled deep in my chest. A week later, rumors began to surface. Clara had been seen in the next town over, already inserting herself into a different community group. It was almost laughable. Her need for control was insatiable, but at least this time she wasn't our problem. Instead, our neighborhood began to heal. We organized a small gathering at the park, nothing fancy, just potluck dishes and string lights. It felt like the first true celebration in a long time, free from Clara's watchful eye. As I looked around, children laughing, adults chatting freely, neighbors who had once avoided each other now laughing side by side, I realized how much had been stolen from us. Not just trust, but simple joy. And yet, we had reclaimed it. Later that night, as Noah and I walked home hand in hand, he squeezed my fingers. "You did more than just expose her," he said quietly. "You gave everyone permission to trust again." His words warmed me, but a part of me still carried scars. Trust was fragile, and betrayal left marks that didn't fade overnight. In the privacy of my home, I reflected on everything that had happened. Clara had almost convinced me I was the problem, that my instincts, my friendships, even my sanity weren't real. That was the cruelty of manipulation. It rewrote your own truth. But I had learned something powerful. You can lose everything: trust, friendship, even your sense of self. But as long as you hold on to courage, you can rebuild. Clara might still be out there, whispering lies into new ears, but she no longer had power over me. And if she ever came back, she would find a community that had learned not to bow to fear. We were stronger now. Do you think communities can fully heal after betrayal? Or do the scars always remain? Seasons changed, and with them, so did our neighborhood. Where once there had been suspicion and silence, now there was laughter, shared meals, and open doors. The fences that had grown tall between us, invisible walls of distrust, began to crumble, one kind word at a time. It amazed me how quickly healing could take root once fear was gone. On a crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves scattered across the lawns, I stood on my porch with Noah, sipping coffee and watching kids race their bikes down the street. It felt like home again, not just a place where we lived, but a place where we belonged. And in that quiet moment, I understood something important. Clara hadn't destroyed us. Yes, she had fractured bonds, twisted words, and poisoned trust. She had left scars, no doubt. But she hadn't won, because the truth always finds a way to the surface. Lies can run fast, but they can't outrun time. The truth was what set us free. Not long after, we received word from the next town. Clara had tried her games there too, but the community, wary of her charm, caught on quickly. She was asked to leave. Again, a strange mix of pity and satisfaction washed over me. Pity, because Clara would forever be chasing control she could never keep. Satisfaction, because I knew she could no longer hurt us. One evening, as we gathered for another neighborhood dinner under the soft glow of string lights, Mrs. Ellis raised her glass and said, "To second chances, to friendship, and to the courage it takes to speak the truth." Everyone clinked their glasses, laughter echoing into the night. I smiled, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. This was the community I had almost lost. Later, Noah leaned close and whispered, "You know, you changed everything. You didn't just expose her lies, you gave everyone their voice back." I rested my head against his shoulder, maybe. But we all stood together. That's what made the difference, and I truly believed it. The story of Clara, our charming but manipulative neighbor, would live in whispers for years to come, a reminder of how easily trust can be exploited. But it would also serve as proof of something greater, that truth, resilience, and unity are always stronger than deceit. As I looked around at my neighbors, people who had once been divided, now closer than ever, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. And in that peace, I found my own new beginning. Because betrayal may leave scars, but courage creates strength. And sometimes strength isn't about standing alone, it's about standing together. And that was the lesson Clara never understood. Have you ever dealt with someone who seemed charming on the outside but turned out to be toxic underneath? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.